What's going on YouTube? James Polk here, and just got home from Yu-Gi-Oh! Locos, and upon experimenting online from Dueling Nexus weeks in advance, I decided to take on this tacky deck challenge by making a few different engines of the deck, and it performed super well. So what I'm going to showcase you guys the deck is the Shaddoll Predaplant Fortune Fairies. So with that being said, let's get right into this deck. So for starters, that would be 2 Shaddoll Beasts, 2 Shaddoll Squamata, 1 Hedgehog, and 1 Falco. No Shaddoll Dragon. I really didn't think it was necessary. And then when it comes to the Shaddoll engine, on the way how it's performed, Beasts with the draw cards, which is really good. Shaddoll Squamata, Foolishing, another Shaddoll card, is what got him to have me deck thin at the very most. And at least one or two times is where I have Shaddoll Squamata being flipped up to destroy one monster my opponent controls. It comes up for quite some time. And then for Hedgehog, most of the time is where you have Shaddoll Hedgehog to search one of your other Shaddoll monster targets. And then Falco, Falco on the other hand, it's where I usually have Falco reset himself by the card effect. Or otherwise, it's where on my opponent's turn, or as of like the next turn, I get to Monster Reborn any other Shaddoll monster outside of Falco as a late game setup. So that's the Shaddoll engine. And then for the next engine, which is the Fortune Fairies, Hikari and Hu, Sui, and favorite one of in terms of my artworks, and Chi, literally my favorite one out of everyone else for the Fortune Fairies. So when it comes to the Fortune Fairies, most of the time where everyone doesn't even know what's going on with that engine. So I decided to play the Fortune Fairy engine because I originally loved the concept of playing the Invoked, but I don't actually own the whole entire core. So I thought, why not the Fortune Fairy engine just to catch everyone off guard? So, and most of the times people don't even know how Fortune Fairies work, so they end up like Solemn Striking it like once or twice, or just impermanenting it on the field and all none whatsoever, like as if it was a big threat to them. Well, the case is never use your resources amongst the Fortune Fairies. So the case about the Fortune Fairy is that when they are drawn into them, they get special. You can have the option to special summon them from your hand, which is really solid for an extender. And when it comes to the effects and the scenarios, we'll start our way backwards and then we'll work our way up. So Chi, the level 6 Earth, again my favorite one. She lets both players draw a card, which is really nice. And then Anne, the level 5 Dark, she lets me banish one spellcaster monster from the deck. And then Sui is really good when you draw into her. She lets you target one face-up monster your opponent controls. It gets banished until the standby phase of my next turn, which is really good. And then Who, if you happen to see Anne first or Allure of Darkness, and once you drawn into Who later on, either in the draw phase or any other given time, that as long as it doesn't miss the timing, she lets you get a spellcaster from your banished pile back to your hand, only one. And then End the Fire, she targets one set card, monster or spell trap your opponent controls, it gets killed. And then Hikari, the Light, it's basically where if I have another level 1 spellcaster type, what she does is she lets me send one monster I control to the grave, so that she lets me special one level 1 spellcaster from the deck. but in terms of a one for one thing. So the reason why I decided to play the Fortune Fairy engine, there are a few reasons why amongst them. So Earth, draw cards. The Dark, banishing spellcasters, any of them. So Shaddolls are spellcasters as well. Sui, spot removal in case of you can't get over big monsters. The Who, the Wind, that is for you after seeing and or Lure Darkness being used first. And destroys cards. And then the Hikari is El Shaddai construct targets. And then the next engine is the plants. So that would be 3 Lone Fires, 3 Predaplant Orpheus Scorpio, and 1 Darlingtonia Cobra. Nothing else to say for that engine. Super standard. And then the limited Morphing Jar, which is pretty much game if your opponent doesn't find a way to have it flipped up, which is really, really strong. And then for the spells, Book of Moon, Card Destruction, pretty much a wrap where if you have Shaddolls in your hand, and if you end up drawing Fortune Fairies, yeah, you're going to generate a massive advantage at that point on. Foolish Burial for the Shaddolls, Monster Reborn, anything else. And then 1 Shaddoll Fusion along with 1 El Shaddoll Fusion. I've seen some builds only play at least like 2 of the Shaddoll Fusion or the El Shaddoll Fusions. But knowing that Super Poly has gone back up to 3, which is why I decided to opt it into playing 2 of them instead of just 3. Like, don't get me wrong, 3 Super Polys is great, but I felt like 3 was way too many for me. But at the same time, I want to limit my resources as much as I can. And then the 1 Instant Fusion, of course, that's all of the fusion and or poly targets all from the Predaplant engine to search out. And then Secrets and the Knowledge, Allure Darkness, and then the 2 Wonder Wands. The Secrets and the Knowledge, I know everyone always asking why only 1. Knowing that the engine of Shaddolls is really, really small for that matter. And sometimes, in case of opening awkward hands like the Fortune Fairy engine, which you never really want to see, then you could just fix up the whole entire hand with the help of Spellbook of Knowledges, Wonder Wands, or even the Allure of Darkness for the Shaddoll engine. So, and the one crucial key note that I've been learning my lesson for the last 2 weeks is that only Winda can get her effect off with Wonder One and no other Shaddolls from the main deck. But if using with Knowledge, pretty much every single Shaddoll engine can get their effect off of it. So, and then the spiciest spell card I've played, which helps me win games over the weekend, is 2 Dark Magic Veils. And what this card really does is, as in not once per turn, you can pay 1,000 points. Not you can. Mandatory. Pay 1,000 points so that you can special summon 1 dark spellcaster from your hand or graveyard. So even if cards like the Shaddolls or the Thousand Eyes Restrict that you used earlier on, as an instant fusion, you can special summon the Thousand Eyes Restrict back and keep on clearing their monsters one by one, so you can keep on either link climbing it or bringing it back, so you can play the Thousand Eyes Restrict control, or otherwise you can also bring back El Shaddai Winda as well, knowing that she's a dark spellcaster. And then for the traps, that would be 3 Heavy Storm Duster and Starlight Road. The IQ 200 play I did involving the Starlight Road and the Heavy Storm Dusters is where I usually have 2 or 3 of the dusters set along with this. And then the play was, so I let my opponent set up all of the back row, as in like during the paleo matchup, so that way I want to use the heavy storm duster at the right timing. So what I decided to do was, before I let my opponent reach end phase, I go heavy storm duster to any of my 2 back rows, and then change Starlight Road so I can guarantee myself a Stardust Dragon out of the extra deck by any means necessary. Because Starlight Road, it's only when 2 of your cards, no matter what the scenario is, are about to get ready to be destroyed. You can just negate it, and then you can pretty much bring out Stardust Dragon if necessary. And then the extra deck, We Witch's Apprentice, Beat Cop, Shaddoll Construct, and Link Karibo. These are really solid the way how I use up the links properly. We Witch's Apprentice, I've gone into her countless times. Beat Cop on certain occasions. Shaddoll Construct at least once, and then Link Karibo. This is countless times after seeing the instant fusion into Dazzle Eyes, and then link it off with this. And then for the fusions, the limited constructs, double windows, that's obvious. And then these super polys, Star Venom, Predaplant Drago Stapelia, and Mud Dragon of the Swamp. And then the Thousand Eyes Restrict as the instant fusion targets. Sometimes you can also do Mud Dragon too, but personally to me, I rather have Mud Dragon being used as a super poly target. And then to finish off the rest of the extra deck, that will be Arcanite Magician, knowing that Fortune Fairy and Shaddoll Beast are the level 5 non-tuner spellcasters, along with the Shaddoll Falco, which is the level 2 tuner. So that way you can go into Arcanite Magician, and as a late game setup to pop cards on your opponent's side, which is really strong, it's best to do some major damage and first, and then remove the counters so you can pop cards if needed to. Scarlight, gone into this card at least once or twice throughout the matches and it legit steals games. Stardust Dragon for Starlight Road, and Beals, that is for the Shaddoll Falco as the Dark Tuner target to go into Beals. And it's really strong going against True Draco, unless if they somehow have cards that can either banish or put the Beals back into the extra deck by any means. And with that being said, this is James Polk once again speaking out on this newly entire engine deck. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share it, and I'll see you guys later on.